Folks that Thank you. Folks that have longstanding careers or have done specific or have specific accomplishments over the past 2 years that particularly from our partners across sectors and recognizing the work that coordinating committee and executive members are seeing and observing in their colleagues throughout the region. And we approached Legacy Awards a little different this year, so I'd like to just share that with you, and then we'll launch into to who those 7 folks are. And you're starting to see a number of them on the screen. So thank you for coming off so we can see faces that way. So you may feel like let's see. So the coordinating committee approached things a little bit differently this year with kind of a modified approach to these legacy awards. The coordinating committee felt strongly that it was important to recognize recent retirements, recent transitions, particularly at the federal level, but also throughout sectors. And every jurisdiction came forward and nominated 1 to 2 folks that they feel like do important work in their jurisdiction or crossing state and provincial boundaries. And the resulting list are the folks that you'll see in front of you today. So as Greg said in the chat, thank you Legacy Award winners for the outstanding work that you've done for the environment and for our human participation in it. You have a meaningful impact on the spill response community. So that's coming from our coordinating committee member of California OSPR. So I think what I'd like to do is, I'll just say I've had the privilege to speak with all of the Legacy Award winners on the phone over the last week to 10 days, and it genuinely has been one of the best part of my job recently is just connecting with each of you. And so thank you for the opportunity to do that. I know coordinating committee members who were eager to make the phone calls and let you know about these awards and express the same sentiment to me. So I think what I'd like to do, I'm gonna walk down my list. I have kind of a shortened version of the Legacy Award bios, and we have put in the chat some longer bios, so I encourage folks to look at those. These are bios that were developed either by the nominator or the Legacy Award winner themselves and represent kind of a broader look at the at careers and some of the details. So please open that and take a look at that. When I do this, my colleagues at Triangle are going to take the panels and pin them to the screen so that we can recognize these folks, and also we do have some questions prepared for them. Most or all of the Legacy Award winners have agreed to be on kind of a career Legacy Award panel, share with them some thoughts on career advice, turning points in their careers, attention to the task force over the years. So we will spend some time doing that over the next hour. And also in the chat is a link to the website where you can see past Legacy Award winners throughout the years. Okay. So I'd like to start with Carl Boelter of Clean Rivers, and I'm going to do this, and then I am going to give coordinating committee members an opportunity to weigh in and say hello to particularly folks that were nominators for these folks. So Carl Boelter's Clean Rivers. Carl was nominated by Oregon DEQ, who states that DEQ is thankful for his professionalism, his attention to detail, and his longstanding efforts to protect the environment. Thank you, Carl. I don't see you on the screen right now. If you're unknown, if you'd maybe let's get you in the front here. But congratulations to Carl, and just couldn't be more pleased to hear from Oregon DEQ the high praises that they have for Carl and Carl's work with Clean Rivers. Oh, thank you, Vanessa. So we'll get Carl on here in a minute. I should have started down the list. Okay, I do see Richard Franklin with, Richard was also nominated by Oregon DEQ and has been an invaluable over the past 17 years as a federal on-scene coordinator, mentor, and friend to DEQ emergency response staff. Sometimes referred to as the Zen master of spills. His steady hand and calm demeanor has helped teams navigate through many high-pressure situations, resulting in protective outcomes for Oregonians and our ecosystems. Richard, when Kimberly had the opportunity to nominate folks, she couldn't have acted fast enough to nominate both you and Carl for this award, so congratulations. Okay, Doug Helton, National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration. Good to see you, Doug. Doug was nominated by Washington Ecology as well as some colleagues at NOAA for his 33 years of stellar contribution as a spill response leader, supervisor, outreach specialist, and for expertly representing NOAA and the nation in international arenas. Congratulations, Doug. Okay, our next award goes to William Marhoffer. Hi, Bill. Was nominated by the Hawaii State Department of Health. Bill served as the inaugural Incident Management and Preparedness Advisor for Coast Guard District 14, now Oceana, from 2012 until 2025, where his work was indispensable to Hawaii and the Pacific at large. Bill, every conversation I've had with anyone who I've talked to just exudes enthusiasm for your work and your Hawaiian shirts. So thank you for your work. Yeah. Oh, I think you're on mute. And I think I should say aloha shirts, but please correct me with the right terminology.
I'm wearing the aloha shirt and my rubber slippers today.
Good, good. Okay, and your Canadian flag in the background. I love it. Okay. Our next award goes to Beth Sheldrake, Environmental Protection Agency. Beth has dedicated 34 years to EPA Region 10, serving in both a Superfund and emergency management programs. A mentor to many and a strong advocate for the environment, her expertise, leadership, and dedication have left a lasting mark on the region's readiness and resilience. Thanks, Beth. Yeah, really appreciate all your contributions, especially in the area committee and regional response team and through the federal partners meeting yesterday. Okay, Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Jordan Stout, National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, SSC. Over the last 20 years, Jordan has served as the lead scientific support coordinator, or SSC, on more than 265 incidents on the West Coast of the US and around the country and abroad. As SSC, he has consistently demonstrated exceptional skill, unwavering dedication, and untiring commitment in responding to oil spills. Everyone, okay, great, thanks. And let's see, I'm good. Love the Canadian support. It sounds like Carl's going to be calling in. And I think we're working on getting the awardees pinned to your screens if we can do that. Okay. Okay, our last award, and she's expressed her condolences for being on furlough and not being able to join us here today. But this award goes to Ruth Yender with NOAA. Ruth is Scientific Support Coordinator for the Pacific Islands, NOAA Emergency Response Division, Office of Response and Restoration. She was nominated by the coordinating committee member, Liz Galvez, who shared that Ruth goes out of her way to assist, always advocate for Hawaii, and also just help in any way she could. Oh, and Ruth is on. Okay, great. Well, Ruth is officially not present, but she is present as a public citizen. So we'll get Ruth up here if she'd like to. But Ruth, participate in any way you feel comfortable today, or we didn't see you here.
Private citizen participation for the day.
Great, great, great. Okay. Well, before I launch into some of the questions that we've prepared, I'd love to give coordinating committee members or executives a chance to just share any short thoughts that you have about your nominations of these folks or anything that the legacy awards mean to you. I think all of the coordinating committee members that I see have are able to come off of mute if you'd like to.
I'll just share, I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of you, and as I put in the chat, I do think the work and the efforts that you put into your work over the years is not just going to do a job taking care of what needs to be taken care of. You guys really do well above what's expected, set the bar high. Long-term commitment to training and to excellence in the future, bringing the next generations up. I know everybody here at OSPR would certainly echo that, when Jordan walks across the incident command post, everybody wants a piece of him. He can't get from one side of the room to the other because his breadth of knowledge is so broad, and experience and expertise. And I know the rest of you guys bring that as well. So appreciate the work that you all done, and everybody on this panel is clearly worthy of the recognition, and thank you.
Great, and I'm seeing a couple of other comments. Let's see. Liz Galvez from Hawaii says, "Thank you, Legacy Award winners. We appreciate all the work that you've done and are continuing to do, especially to Ruth and Bill, who have worked so extensively in Hawaii." I see the room in Washington and Oregon now.
I personally, hi, this is Carlos Clements, and I personally wanted to say thank you to all of you and congratulations on. When we saw the list, it's one of those rare times there wasn't a moment you didn't think that this is absolutely deserved, but there's just one individual I usually want to say thank you to, and that's Beth. Beth, you've been a rock star with a lot of what's been going on with the contingency plan and all the chaos. You've been at the beginning. I was taken aback when I heard you were leaving, but you were right. It is the right time. And even in the shutdown and everything else, you've been constantly thinking of others. I'm going to miss you because you are the epitome of professional. We adore you. I think of you as more than a friend. I think of you as a mentor. I strive to be like you because you think of your people, and you're going to be missed. I adore you. You're beloved. You're a dear friend, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you so much, Carlos and everyone. See, now you're going to make me cry. That's not fair. Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with each and every one of you, and those that have gone before us too. Thank you.
I echo Carlos's sentiments for Beth, and I wanted to just say how much I appreciate her and Richard Franklin, who has been a mentor to me for many, many years. And I've actually been out on scene with him, and he is like the Zen master of spindles. And he also gives great hugs. Thank you for everything.
And dad jokes.
Oh, and dad jokes appropriately.
Thank you.
For dad jokes.
Great, and behind the scenes, we're working on getting some of the chats that are shared with the host into the chat for everyone, so you can see those. And just a reminder for folks, technically, if you click on the little blue box down, you can chat with everyone, not just the hosts, and it just is great to be able to see those. Ruth also shared, Richard, that you're a really, really funny guy, so I appreciate that in what can be kind of a serious field too, I know is important.
Meg, maybe I'll just jump in. Peter Brock from British Columbia. Just want to say from BC, congratulations to all legacy members of the task force, and just really appreciate the strong role models that you are for kind of shaping how we work together and kind of our joint efforts across the border to protect our shared environment. So yeah, just congrats to you on behalf of BC, on behalf of Canada.
We'll transition to what I think you all are waiting for, which is hearing from the awardees themselves, because folks are being recognized for longstanding careers, for mentorship, leadership, and there's a lot that we can learn from these individuals, and I'm hearing that folks have been learning from them for years. So I think what we'd like to do, we have a couple questions that we've put forward, but I'm also open to taking any questions that people have in the Q&A, and we can bring kind of that into conversation as well. I would like to start with a question around and we've posed some of these questions to folks, and I think maybe you've weighed in on questions that you'd like to answer. Feel free to jump in at any time. I might direct questions to you here and there. But the first question I have is, what was a pivotal time or turning point for you in a career, and how did it change like where you are today?
Do you want someone to volunteer to go first?
Let's do that. Yeah, it sounds like that's a volunteer, I think, right there. And then if anyone wants to raise their hand, there's 3 or 4 questions. So if something doesn't resonate with you, no worries. But if you, Doug will kick us off, and then anyone else who wants to think about this question and weigh in after that, just raise your hand and I'll know we can come to you.
Okay, and how am my sounds coming through?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you really well.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for nominating me and all of the other folks on the panel. And it's great to see folks, especially some of the folks I work with closely, like Jordan and Ruth and Beth and Bill. So I'm impressed that you guys got us all on the phone together. It was hard to do that when I was operations coordinator for incidents. So for me, a big pivotal point in my career was working on the longliners out in American Samoa and the removal of the abandoned vessels out there. And that was something I know Bill was involved with. And I think Ruth was around, but it was Sharon Christofferson that was the SSC. And that was an awareness that some of these incidents have very long lives. The fuel oil spills and goes away, and a year or 2 later, it's hard to know that it happened. But if you leave a ship on the reef, it's there and a reminder every day until it's removed. So abandoned vessels became a big interest of mine, and started working on abandoned vessel issues in a variety of venues, including some historic shipwrecks. And then now as a retiree, there's been a derelict vessel out in front of my cabin for the last month or 2. So been following that, and finally was pulled off the beach yesterday. So congratulations to all the folks that were involved with that. So that was a big step for me. And thank you for letting me join this call.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I need to lower my hand. Well, I agree with Doug. It's really an honor to be here with the other awardees and everybody else on the phone. There's a lot of stories, a lot of incredible experience here. This came out of the blue, so thank you, DEQ and Kimberly and Wes and Don and all the others there. We've had a marvelous relationship. Pivotal points, I've actually done this here in Region 10, 16, 17 years. Before that, I was in EPA Region 6 for 15 years, doing an awful lot of work there with hurricanes and spills and a lot of hazmat. And as we grow older and learn, it seems like there's not maybe just one pivotal point, but maybe a few. And so I could think of 2. And one was when I was an early, younger person as an on-scene coordinator with EPA. And in Region 6, we covered, by the way, Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas. And the turning point, the first one was when I was a younger, newer OSC, and I had made some significant mistakes. I really don't remember what they were, but my boss at the time and recently passed friend Jim Mullins, who was an OSC and then a boss section chief for many, many years. And he fought for his staff, and he pulled me into his office, closed the door, Richard. I'm like, oh no, a closed door meeting with my supervisor. And he said, you really screwed up here. And other bosses in the past, when I make a mistake, seems like I do that regularly and have to learn the hard way. I've got sores on me from Beth beating me. You should know that. But, they might say, get out of my office and go fix it. And what he said was, I want you to be, and we need you to be successful and be on a more successful path. So I'm going to help you with that. And it'll be good for you and for the agency. So let's go down this path instead. And that was a very meaningful moment for me. I think the other big moment, certainly one of the biggest ones in 2003. Yeah, that's been some time ago, but that's when the Columbia shuttle blew up over Texas. And EPA moved into true unified command with the Forest Service and NASA under ESF 10, FEMA in charge. We covered 400 square miles of search and recovery, as well as hazmat work. I was incident commander, sharing the role every 2 weeks with another on-scene coordinator, fellow by the name of Charles. His last name escapes me now. EPA always thought we did unified command. We didn't really know incident command, unified command very well. And when we watched the Forest Service roll in, that's when we really started learning it. That was a phenomenal learning experience on how to work with others, how really to do unified command. We had at least, I think, 5 or 6 command posts. We were picking up remains of the astronauts as well as parts of the shuttle. A lot of folks working, probably about 1,200 and 1,300 people at each camp. That was a pivotal time for learning how to work with others in a very stressful environment, which often everybody on this call ends up being sooner or later in a very stressful environment. So I'll quit there, but those two were, I think, really good experiences for me. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Let's go to Bill and then Jordan.
From the Coast Guard perspective, a organizational pivotal moment was 2011, 2012, when the organization established the incident management and preparedness advisor positions at each district. Prior to that, the Coast Guard representation on the RRTs was a bit of a pickup game. And we had people by position, not necessarily by background and experience, put into that role. It was not a highlight for the organization. And having the established civilian positions, I think, brought professionalism to the organization. Not saying that just about myself, but about all of my incident management preparedness advisor colleagues, brought more consistency to the Coast Guard's participation in the RRT, as well as in the overall organizational marine environmental protection, marine environmental response enterprise.
Thanks, Bill. And before we go to you, Jordan, I'd just like to say welcome and congratulations to Carl. Carl, thank you for the little bit of hiccups, but I'm really glad to have you on now, and good to see your face as well. Okay, Jordan.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I started as a NOAA SSE in 2005, and less than 5 years later, Deepwater Horizon happened, and I was selected to be the SSE, one of 2 SSEs rotating through the Homa Command Post in Louisiana, which was where operationally where a lot of the focus was out in the field. That's where things like in situ burning operations and aerial dispersant applications were being coordinated, as well as a lot of the cleanup activities right at the wellhead, or at the surface of the water above the wellhead. And needless to say, it was my expectation that was probably going to be the biggest spill I was ever going to work on in my career. And I was really pretty darn stressed walking into that command post. There was probably 1,200 people in the building, and I was going to be in my traditional role as an SSC, providing essentially a science advisor to the Coast Guard for this massive spill with all sorts of different moving parts and everything. And I was really, really quite stressed and nervous about it until I walked into the main command post room and I recognized about a third of the faces in the room. And it seems kind of like a basic thing, but if it hadn't been for all the drills and exercises that I've been involved in, I would not have been able to take a breath and relax and really start getting to work and focusing on the things that you need to focus on. So I think there was a real value to me and a realization that a lot of the relationships you build in between spills is hugely critical, especially when you're walking into such a stressful situation like a Deepwater Horizon.
Thanks, Jordan, for sharing that. Ruth?
Yeah, so I'll add, I think what was pivotal for me, I actually worked on Exxon Valdez on a task force at the time I was with EPA and worked with some great people there, but I worked with this really impressive group with the NOAA office and thought, whoa, I want to keep doing this work. And that's when I joined what was, we called ourselves hazmat, the hazmat team then. But just working on such a major spill in Alaska really calibrated everything I did after that. It was just, there's nothing like the experience of being at a large spill in the field. So I think that was very pivotal for me and a lucky opportunity to join the team I've worked with since then.
Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, Beth.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I think a pivotal point for me was when I actually decided to step away from emergency response for a period of time in my career. I think we all know how taxing it can be, and how, it impacts our families and other things in our lives. And for me, because of a lot of factors, I felt I needed to step away. The second really pivotal time was when I decided to come back. I spent a number of years pursuing other things, but the community wasn't as strong. This community, whether it's right here in the Northwest or nationally or even internationally, is small and tight. And it's like Jordan said, when times are really difficult, and you are able to rely on those relationships in the community that you've built, there's really no other position I'd rather be in, and in the field that I'd rather be in. So those were pivotal points for me.
Thanks for sharing that. And Carl, I'll just orient you to the panel a little bit. So we have 2 to 4 questions kind of based on time. You're welcome to respond to any of them. You don't have to. Anything that resonates you with. The first question was about a pivotal time or turning point for you in your career. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts, or I can ask you the next question.
Pivotal time or turning points. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Kimberly and Wes, and Don, and Kirian, and Brandon, and for this great opportunity. Very honored, and it's definitely a blessing career too. So, and then going back to your question, the pivotal turning point in my career, in combo with what skill experience prepared you with most for being in this field, I felt that this really hit home for me. And this is like about 32 years ago. I started out in the asphalt tank farm, processing asphalt. Unfortunately, we had a few spills, dealt with asphalt, paving grades, emulsions, seal coatings, and also as the vessel instructor, also for Pole and Boom and the local GRPs. So with that, and then of course on top of that, our tabletop exercises, deployment exercises. That was all in the early 90s. And that really opened my eyes to this opportunity to seek this career, because I had I dabbled in a little bit of everything that, the spill experience, different products, and also processing different crude oils and that, and getting an understanding the melt and pen and flash and visc and the characteristics of oil. So that supported my career, going this far. So that was really the turning point in my career for me.
Thanks, Carl. Okay, as we started thinking about this panel, we were thinking about, folks attending this meeting on all ends of the spectrum, from really new to the field and early career responders to late career responders. So the next two questions I have are kind of framed around that. The first is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone new entering this field? And Doug went first last, so I'll look for another volunteer for this one. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, Heather said it earlier, and Jordan, nice to see you, Jordan, by the way. I hadn't seen you in a while. Jordan just said it too, and I had heard this as a younger OSC, and that was relationship building. And so to try and work on relationships, be flexible when you're working with others. That's sort of it. I heard that when I was younger in some of our national trainings, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I'd rather be pulling boom or working on a model of Bakken with Ruth Yender or something. But it's the same, Jordan. It's the same when I came up here, and when the Mosier train derailment, Bakken oil, happened in 2016, and I was the FOSC for it, and I remember driving out there to it, and I could see the plume. Traffic was shutting down on both sides of the Columbia River, and I had this little, don't tell anybody, because you're supposed to be, I was supposed to be a strong OSC, but inside there was a little chicken running around going, oh my God, what now? The White House is going to get briefed, EPA headquarters, and Bakken was much more under the microscope at that time, and Beth didn't fire me, so I guess I did okay. But as usual, it was difficult, chaotic. We're trying to pull unified command together. The train cars are on fire. The tribes were right at my throat. It was difficult. And so I took a few hours after the middle of the night, the fire finally got out. I tried to go back to the hotel and get some sleep. My deputy, Mike Boykin, was there to handle things. And when I arrived 3-4 hours later, we saw Union Pacific had brought in an incident management team, and I knew almost every single one of them from work on the Gulf Coast, right? From response after response drills and exercises. So Jordan, I think you just hit it on the head immediately. It's like, oh my God, okay, great. Now we know these people, we've worked with them, and it just soothes the way. And everybody, I think, already knows that, but there's so many different things to say, but I think that's key. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. And I see Beth's hand up.
Yeah, well, sort of keeping with a bit of a theme, but I would of relationships. But I'd say also you don't need to know everything. You need to have relationship with people that know things, but you're never gonna feel like 100% confident going into that incident or that press conference or that meeting. So be humble and rely on the experts. Don't try to think you know everything, and be open to other perspectives. Decisions are always better when different perspectives are taken into account. And then I guess the third thing I would say is there are lots of ways to contribute to the success of spill prevention, preparedness, and response. You have the responders, you need to have the data people, you need to have the analysts, you need to have the public affairs people. If one area isn't feeling right to you, be open to contributing in other ways.
Thanks, Beth. Jordan? And yeah, feel free to come off of mute, as you guys are good at this. So, and if you step across each other, messy. You have permission to be messy too. Go ahead, Jordan.
Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, I guess so the number of big spills and the volume of big spills has declined over the decades. And so there's less and less opportunity, at least in the US anyway, for big spill experience. And there's a lot of people that are, have been in their career for quite a while. But for the folks that are coming in, regardless of what your role is, I think there's a lot of mentors out there that are happy to kind of help share their knowledge and want to help build your experience level at all possible. And so I would try to encourage people to not just ask questions, but also ask for some stories, because there's lots of good stories, really teachable moments that people have experienced and reflected on themselves and have walked away with lessons learned and how they could do things better the next time. And that's one of the things that I found fairly early on in my career with NOAA, was that sometimes people like at OSPR would come up to me and say, hey, this can't be the first time this issue has ever come up on a spill. Can you find out from some of the other SSCs in other parts of the country how they dealt with this situation X that we're dealing with on this spill? And I think that sort of opportunity for mentorship really kind of was highlighted for me. And I think any way you can kind of bolster that ability to access someone's expertise or perspective or networks, I think is useful. And I think an easy way to do that is to ask people, not just questions, but ask them for stories, the lessons that they've learned under the other spills that might be applicable to the one you're working on.
Thanks. Some great nuggets of advice. I'll transition us to another question. I have a question here that I'm going to ask you, but I'm also going to modify it a little bit based on what I heard from Beth. I think my question is, how do you keep focus and purpose in the final years of your career? And I was just reflecting, Beth, as you were describing, the taking care of yourself and giving yourself grace too. So in that finding and keeping purpose, but also how do you maintain like a sustainable career for yourself and take care of yourself in this work? Ruth?
I'll say, and it's kind of the answer to the last question too, is make sure you pace yourself and don't burn yourself out. It's easy to do on emergency response work. So to be mindful of that and make sure you take some breaks.
And to add to that, the challenges are even bigger for the folks that are still working in the field, because so many, at least within NOAA and EPA, so many people have retired in the last year. So it's even more pressure. And I understand that, with the shutdown now, there's only a skeleton crew answering the phone for many of the agencies. So appreciate those that are still working, like Aaron, who's on the call, I believe. So I appreciate that you're there for us. And I think Ruth's right, pacing yourself, but also sharing your knowledge with the next generation. And it may not be directly, it might be through those things like writing information, blogs, op-eds. It's amazing how many people I run into that are working on spills that have only a couple incidents under their belt. So to have access to folks like us that have hundreds or thousands, it's really critical to share that.
Thanks, Doug. Bill?
Most of the people I've worked with in this field of endeavor, certainly on the federal side, are idealists. They were motivated to save the world, save the ecology, save the environment, save the oceans. And that attitude, loving the work and remembering what first motivated you, can carry you quite a long ways through not loving the working environment.
Thanks. Let's go, Richard and then Beth.
I think Beth was first, actually. I, Bill, thank you for saying what you just said. I was trying to think about, well, how do I answer this question? And I think you just hit a solid rock core thing to remember. And that's good for me to try to remember as I age and after many years of almost being burned out a couple of times. I think what Beth said was right on. I like the word giving yourself grace. But there's something that occurred to me. It was obvious after Katrina. I was the first person in for Region 6 into Katrina for the agency for Louisiana. And every agency, state, federal, local, was overwhelmed, very stressful, working many hours. After the first 2 weeks, I could not make a full sentence. Of course, everybody handles stress differently, but I noticed that some people didn't realize they were stressed, or they weren't showing signs until afterwards, after they demobbed and went home. And my wife told me, "I don't know who you think we are, but we are not your contractors." And I was really, really stressed out. I can, and many others were too. Some very strong OSCs, male, female. Um, there was a fellow who had been a Marine, in the line of fire. He was rescuing people during the early days of Katrina. We're not a search and rescue agency, but FEMA asked us to do that. We had 100 boats in the water. He's rescuing people, getting shot at by people on the roofs, looking at dead bodies floating around. It was very stressful. And he came through a command on his way out, and I took him to the airport. He was not a touchy-feely person. And he hugged me and he wouldn't let me go. And then we find out later afterwards there's an effect on us and our families. And so that's another piece to, I think, recognize it's not just during the response, but perhaps afterwards. Thanks.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. And I guess I was going to say, pace yourself, look out for yourself, but also, look out for others. And I guess along with what Richard was saying, sometimes we don't recognize it in ourselves. And I'm sure we've all have colleagues who are, suffered irreparable, either mental health or physical health impacts from the world and the work we've chosen. And so finding ways to have those difficult conversations if you see one of your colleagues that is struggling, and finding some help for them, and making it okay among us. We don't have to be tough and invincible. We're humans, and we're doing difficult work, but it shouldn't take away our livelihood and lives.
Thank you all. And your words are making me remember a keynote we had a couple years ago at our last fully virtual meeting. Charlie Strickfaden from the National Park Service gave a keynote on critical incident stress management, and I just posted a link to the chat if folks are interested in going back and watching that. And that'll prompt you to get to other meetings too, and you might go down a rabbit hole of other presentations that have been given over the years. But thank you for that. And I think, I talked a little bit about this morning about that idea of nurturing organizational health, and it's not just the organization of the task force, but also the individuals that are on it, and all of our partners. Okay, so you've each had a long history with the task force. I imagine, like, weaving through with work of the task force. I'm curious if you have like one memory of the task force, whether it was like the task force as a body or individuals that you would like to share, or one attribute that you've seen of the task force in its 36 years of existence.
Well, Meg, I really appreciated the the special sessions that you guys had on abandoned and derelict vessels and bringing together people on that issue. And I hope that you continue to work on that issue. That still seems to be a thorn in all of the West Coast and BC's side.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah. Beth.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just the existence of the task force. I mean, really what visionaries, that Christine Gregoire and everyone else who recognized kind of the power of the collective, that, you know, we have across the West Coast and the Pacific have really precious resources, and they're all kind of interconnected. And so, you know, bringing together and then growing over the years, this organization to be a voice, a collective voice, sometimes pushing issues that maybe EPA and the Coast Guard can't effectively push, like abandoned and derelict vessels, to get some traction on those things. Crude by rail, you know, was it was really important to raise the concerns there and kind of push EPA in particular to taking that issue more seriously and kind of upping our preparedness game. So, you know, there is really no other place in the country or really probably the world. I mean, maybe that's too strong of a statement where this kind of collective has been able to come together and sustain the kind of visionary work that the task force has done and all the member agencies in leading it.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so I echo the same sort of sentiment that regional collaboration at the state and provincial level, I think, is beneficial. I think not only because it helps to build sort of a co-equal partnership with the federal agencies on a number of issues, but also, as Beth just mentioned, that they can advocate for things that for instance, Coast Guard and EPA can't advocate for. But also, I think, and I think being able to leverage that expertise and experiences from other state and provincial entities, I think, is useful, particularly at a time when the federal government is shut down and is not quite as nimble as it would normally be. So I think at times like right now, it's probably even more critical to have that strong regional level collaboration network available.
Thanks, Jordan. Anyone have other thoughts on this before
I would just like to share, Meg, if I could. I think the task force really created a space for open communication, and that's more, you know, like for agencies, cooperatives like Clean Rivers and responders, and you know, looking back in the early '90s, the only time really you would really, you know, work with the agencies and that is, you know, at drills, and that would be pretty much the end of the conversation, really. And now it's, you know, tenfold. It's we are, you know, with DEQ and Department of Ecology, Washington State, you know, we're going out together and improving, you know, DRP strategies and wildlife response and staging areas, and this is, you know, it's we're communicating. Most of us are communicating like quarterly, and talking about, you know, local issues and that, and, you know, improving. And also a big winner, you know, for our members is that the evaluations that the agencies do at our drills for our members, we're actually seeing that feedback from the evaluators, and then taking that, and if there's any deficiencies, we are putting trainings together to improve our members, either spill response, you know, equipment or training, or, you know, how they would, you know, hold a position, you know, being operations section chief. So I think that's really evolved, and it's very, very beneficial for all of us here in the Northwest.
Thanks, Carl.
Yep.
Okay, so I'd like to look us towards the future a little bit, first professionally and then personally. So professionally, looking to the future, What are you most excited about in spill prevention and response? Anything that kind of has you thinking or optimistic? Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, well, for those sort of in the Northwest area, I mean, this has been a time of change, and I was probably one that was resisting that change early on because I knew in my heart and soul what a strong planning and preparedness organization we had collectively been, and I was very concerned about that not continuing in the way that we had historically. But I think, as with all change, I think there's some new opportunities and really some great visionary people who are kind of taking the seats of those early 90s folks like myself and Dick Logan and Elin Story and those folks who visioned where we got to or where we've been, but that what is the future and the new risks and different challenges with, I think as Jordan said, we haven't, thank goodness, had big spills, at least in the Northwest and in Alaska. And so keeping the focus on planning, preparedness, and prevention when, it's not in the headlines is definitely a challenge. But so important because we all know it just takes one bad day and we're back, in the headlines. And if we're not prepared, if we're not doing the hard work every day, then not only will we be having a bad day, but the environment and public health will be significantly impacted.
Thanks, Beth. Go ahead, Bill.
I don't see fossil fuels going away overnight, regardless of legislation by certain administrations. I do think, however, that we're going to have to shift a bit of focus to alternative fuels, to alternative energy sources. 20 years ago, nobody was worried about Bakken crude and how it is different than the typical crude oil that was transported at the time. It had its unique attributes, its unique challenges. We learned through experience. Some of it not very positive experience. As Liz briefed earlier today, the battery disposal, the lithium-ion battery disposal going on in Hawaii, that was pioneered by EPA after the Lahaina wildfire, where all kinds of battery banks, both in vehicles and wall-mounted battery banks, were compromised. New things are going to happen. New technology is going to come out, and we're going to be faced with challenges dealing with it, whether it falls under an oil spill task force or the larger environmental protection and response community. We're going to have to look for the future and be prepared to deal with what tomorrow's challenges may be.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm optimistic about some of the tools that have come out in the last decade on sharing information and getting information more rapidly to the command post, but also to the public. We do this for the public, and the public has a lot of perceptions and misperceptions about what happens and what's going on. And the faster we can communicate, as much as we can communicate, it's a good thing. So I'm optimistic that those trends will continue and that we'll be able to keep the headquarters informed as well as the general public.
Thanks, Doug. And I see your comment, Jordan, in the chat too, remote sensing and electronic field data collection. So some good technologies and a good pivot to some conversations we'll be having in just a moment. Lots of really good conversation at the federal partners meeting yesterday around data sharing and data transparency. So thanks for that, Doug. I have one last question for you, particularly those who are recently retired or close to retirement. I'm curious, what's something that you're excited you plan to do in retirement, or how, what are you excited to spend your days on in the next little bit? Go ahead, Bill.
As a nature lover, I'm spending a lot of time out doing nature photography, and I have several significant upcoming wildlife photography trips planned.
I'm a member of our local yacht club, and one of my projects this winter is to clean out their hazmat shed.
Good. You can't get away from the work, but
No, don't put hazmat in your job description, or someone will give you that job.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate the help.
I was
Overly qualified. Go ahead,
so
Jordan.
for the first first 4 months actually after I retired, I did like one fun trip a month to different parts of the country. And one of the things I really enjoyed in the last couple of years at NOAA was some of the opportunities to get involved in some international responses and international trainings. And so I think some mixture of international travel and fly fishing is probably going to be a big part of 2026 for me.
That's great. Richard.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I hope to retire in about a year. Beth, I think you should share your thoughts with us too. So, I still really don't know. My wife and I were talking the other day that all the people we've seen recently that have retired, they've been retired for a year, they look younger. The wrinkles are all gone from their face, and it looks like it's a good thing, right, after all these years. I would like to do more fishing, traveling, love travel. Um, I used to drive a semi truck, 18-wheeler, many, many years ago. I thought, oh, I wonder if I should go back to that. I think that that's sort of a pipe dream, funny thing. I'm not sure it'll really work for me. I also have a degree in music, and I certainly want to return to symphony stage and at least go to those kind of events around the world if I can. There's some symphonies that I would love to hear. So maybe some music, maybe some truck driving. I'm a geologist by trade, so maybe rock licking. I don't know. Fishing, certainly. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you guys are giving me good ideas because I honestly don't know. I am retiring in another month or so, and I've been focused on the things that I won't be doing, not the things I will be doing. So, note to self, that's an important thing to think about. Um, but I think this is also a really hard time, right, Jordan, Doug? I'm sure that you did not see the end of your federal career the way it happened. Honestly, I am the same. I've been able to stick it out, but for lots of reasons now is the time, but it's not the way I saw it. When you spend your career building things and then you see things quickly being dismantled is really challenging. So I know I'm going to spend the first 6 months just hopefully recentering myself, getting my health back, different things that I've been putting off. But then I've been meaning to find a hobby, and I do need to do that. So that'll be first, is finding a hobby.
Sounds like you might have some invitations to go fishing if that's a hobby that appeals to you, Beth. Well, thank you all. Again, I saw the word genuine, I saw the word candid in some of the chat, and just really appreciate your reflections on this work. These legacy awards are meant to kind of highlight, I think the term we use is exemplary, and we have 7 really exemplary folks here in front of us. So again, congratulations. You joined this Task Force Hall of Fame over the years of folks. If you look back at the list, a lot of names you'll recognize. And huge gratitude for you joining us today and for this panel. And I think, I'm going to come away from today, I think, with this sticking with me the longest. And I imagine from the chat that that's going to be true of many people who are here. Thank you. I think what I'd like to do is we don't have an official break built in, but I'd like to give folks 5 minutes. So, and we have some kind of buffer in our agenda to do that. So it's 2:03 Pacific time. Let's come back at 2:10 Pacific time. There's a poll in the chat if you'd like to answer that while we're on break. So 2:10, we're going to be joined by two folks, Rachel Muller and Thomas Tapp, who are going to be helping us see different sides of kind of the technology piece. So that's something that's come up a few times this morning and throughout the conversation just now. And how are we thinking about technology as a tool for both environmental and responder health and safety? So again, thank you so much to our award winners and panelists, and we'll see you all in just a couple of minutes at 2:10 Pacific time, or 10 after the hour.